And the first day in the Alps, 16 riders eliminated or abandoned, including the sprinter Mario Cipollini. And by the way, the race referees hadn't realised he'd given up and did place him on the stage. So they were a little bit embarrassed this morning when he said he'd retired halfway through it yesterday. Now the riders heading away from the town of Aime La Plagne, heading towards Alpe d'Huez, their next big rendezvous on this, the jagged peaks of probably the finest mountain in France, certainly the most famous, and it's been made famous by the Tour de France ever since Fausto Coppi first climbed in 1952. This is now the climb of the Col de la Croix de Fer. The overall distance just over 100 miles, and this is a brute of a climb. It's always very difficult. Not too many spectators can get down the narrow roads and park up on it, otherwise the race would be simply blocked. So consequently, most of the spectators here have had to walk down its slopes from the summit. And after the escapades of Alex Zülle yesterday, this is now Alvaro Mejia of Motorola, and the chase group here, containing the race leader Miguel Indurain, is approximately 1.5 minutes behind. So Indurain is gambling at the moment that all of the damage can be repaired once they descend the Croix de Fer and head down the valley road to Bourg d'Oisans and then start the climb of Alpe d'Huez itself. Claudio Chiappucci on the right of our picture here. The tempo set by the Benesto team. Gerard Ruiz, the rider in second place here, the faithful lieutenant of Miguel Indurain, puts in so much work on his behalf. There is now Alex Zülle taken up his place in second position behind the yellow jersey, as he is indeed overall. Tony Rominger sitting at the back with Arsenio Gonzalez, but at least he's with this group here. Although again, not looking too good as Richard Virenque now starts to sprint for the top. Virenque is in the breakaway move here, has been for a little while now, and there's good points at stake, and Virenque makes them look very, very easily as he goes over the top, and Munoz takes second place there. Johan Brunel wasn't too far behind either. The time gap starting to count on the left of our screen, and it's 1 minute and 20 seconds as now Miguel Indurain's group starts to approach the summit. So the gap hasn't closed at all on the climb of the Col de la Croix de Fer, but Indurain still has a number of teammates there, and this is quite a select little group here. They start to go over the top. That's where we are. We're just beginning the descent now of the Croix de Fer, so that's quite a tough climb behind the riders. And Marco Pantani now dreaming of catching the breakaway. Perhaps he's in the chase group originally. Now he's just ahead of the group containing Miguel Indurain as they start the slopes of the climb of Alpe d'Huez. And this is amazing, but Pantani went immediately the hill began here of Alpe d'Huez, and the breakaway also started to collapse. And now Ivan Gotti is the rider who's gone forward of the group. So again, Gotti is surprising, and here he is, and he's pacing up Richard Virenque at the moment. But Marco Pantani is already beginning to eat into the tail markers of this original breakaway of some 13 men. And there he is. So Pantani, he tried a little bit yesterday. He didn't do what he wanted to do. He said his form wasn't quite there. Well, he has the reserves to go on, and it looks as though his form is coming day by day. He's now on the climb of Alpe d'Huez, and he wants a performance. Lance Jalabert just ahead in the green jersey. Jalabert, one of the early escapers today, alongside Richard Virenque. Jalabert still unsure whether he's going for the yellow jersey competition because he's scoring points in the mountains, and it's a long time since a man in charge of the points jersey has been able to do that. Certainly not Jamaluddin Abdu-Japarov. But Pantani is flying up the slopes of Alpe d'Huez here, and a marvellous, marvellous crowd yet again. Very hot day, but Gotti is the rider who's trying to go for gold on his own. The lone man in the front, and just look at Pantani, the pure climber, as he goes past the king of the mountains, Richard Virenque, who isn't a pure climber. He struggled a lot on the climbs, but he finishes up with the best sprint at the top of them and grabs the points. That's what matters. And now he's trying to hold on to the wheel of Pantani. Well, I'm not sure he'll be able to do that. The rider falling back is Fernando Escartin. And Jalabert, the cheek of Lance Jalabert too. Winner of Milan San Remo this year, the start of what has been a fantastic season for him. And Jalabert's face never tells you anything. Pantani now. He lifted his pace, he didn't get rid of them. They settled in nicely behind him. Even Escartin here with his hunched shoulders hooked up to the back as well. These are the four riders now chasing Ivan Gotti. So Gay Wiz using Gotti once more. This is a man who has finished in the top 10 in the Dauphiné Libéré stage race. In other small stage races he's finished in the top 5, but he's never won a big one. And As you know now, he wore the yellow jersey in this year's Tour de France, lost it to a teammate when unusually the referees split that bunch in the sprint finish. They say, by the way, if they can see a complete barrier between the riders in the group, then they always give that split a separate time. Well, I don't know if they mentioned, but they made the barriers a bit wider this year. Pantani now coming through towards the halfway mark on the climb of Alpe d'Huez, and he's now picked up Ivan Gotti. Now, what's Gotti going to do about this when he sees the man they've nicknamed Dumbo the Elephant come flying by? It's rather a miserable insult, I think, on the fact that his ears stick out. But even so, this man is a character and very, very welcome on the Tour de France. He's a marvellous climber too, and he's just accelerated again. A little acceleration just to see if he can shake Gotti. If he can't, he'll sit down, ease back on the pedals, let Gotti think he's safe, and he might well kick again. Here's Rouet still setting the pace on the climb for Miguel Indurain. And Big Mig looking rather content with the way things are going. He knows the breakaway is completely disintegrated. Now he's got to set about bringing them back one by one. And this is Bjarne Riis here, who's turning out to be quite a sensation in this year's Tour de France. And the rider with him is Laurent Madouas. So Bjarne Riis climbing the mountain. And the rider in the Castorama team is going to have a lot of men looking out to sign him next year on the teams, because he is riding better and better. So Madouas has come up with Bjarne Riis. They've picked up Laurent Jalabert, Richard Virenque and Escartine. So Indurain's group then is still behind Bjarne Riis, and somehow Riis has slipped these. Now Indurain might do well to note that, because he has almost lost time in the time trial. He has also found himself on the defensive in the mountains. He's not going to let things happen like this for too long. Here's Indurain now, starting to step up the tempo. Alex Zula's got his wheel. I wonder how Zula is feeling after that marvellous ride he put in yesterday. Indurain again left without a Banesto man around him at this crucial stage of the race. They get him to where they want to put him, but then they can't go with him. And now Indurain has continued on his own. Zula's hooked up to the back end of him and is going to stay with him, I think. So number one, the winner of the Tour de France the past 4 years, is now having to do the work again himself. His biggest danger man, and there he is. Bjarne Riis is in front. A little bit of message from the back, and in fact in the car there is Evgeny Berzin. So Berzin, who was in trouble on the Croix de Fer, has abandoned the Tour de France. He has never been happy. Well, that's settled one thing now. The leader of the Gay Wiz team is this man here, Bjarne Riis, and Marco Pantani is the leader of the Carrera team, and Pantani going it alone. So Pantani has decided to fly. He's left the group. Indurain is trying desperately to come up, and here he is, a minute 30 behind Pantani. Now he's going to feel very happy with this. He won't see Pantani as the main contender for the overall victory in Paris, and he's got Alex Zula well under control at the moment. What a superb pursuit this is. We're now through the village of Huez, which is about 3 miles from the summit of Alpe d'Huez. And there's the Spanish flags flying, and the man they're going to see, Miguel Indurain, is the rider that they are really most interested in seeing. And here he is now. The group behind, or the group in front rather, is now being picked up by Miguel Indurain, and their heart's going to hit the bottom of the boots when they see him come along. I don't think they're going to see this rider now before the finishing line. He's not climbing just like he was a year ago, but then how could he be, having had that incident with a car which knocked him off and hurt his knee, stopped him riding the Tour of Italy, and now he's trying to make amends in the Tour de France. Sorry about the little bit of picture interference we're experiencing here as we get up towards the summit of Alpe d'Huez, but here's the man probably causing most of the pain and interference, and that's Miguel Indurain. You see, he's got immediately to the front of this group. He knows his place as leader of the Tour de France, that's for sure. A little placard on the right there for Bruno Thibaut, who's having a great Tour de France this year. So too is this rider, Laurent Madouas. He's now trying to be best of the rest here. But Laurent isn't quite the climber of Marco Pantani, I don't think. Miguel Indurain, Alex Zula, Riis has now picked up the wheel of these two. The top 3 riders in the Tour de France are now in the first 3 positions in this group. Escartine is hanging on well in 4th place. Ivan Gotti, and also trying to get back on terms too, is Laurent Jalabert, but they're in a little bit of trouble now as they're further down the slopes of the Tour. This rider now sending out the tempo. Madouas hasn't got on either. And this is Marco Pantani. You can now see the chalets of this famous ski station. It really only opens for a couple of days for the arrival of the Tour de France. Within 2 days of the Tour leaving here, everybody will be packing their bags, including the hotel staff, and going back home for the summer. Because this is very much a winter resort, Alpe d'Huez. And Marco Pantani, I wonder if he can even recall the days. He won't recall them because he wasn't around in 1952, of course, when Fausto Coppi, the great Italian Campanissimo, was the first man to conquer Alpe d'Huez. And then it was the 70s before we came back again. The only other Italian to have won up here is Gianni Bugno, and he's done it twice. And Bugno having an extremely quiet Tour de France this year. But at least we can see the Italian flags. It now seeks out Ivan Gotti and Lance Armstrong. Jalabert, of course, a Frenchman, speaks fluent Spanish because he rides on the Once team. The parting of the ways. How often have we seen this for all of the great cyclists in the Tour de France who conquer Alpe d'Huez first? And now the barriers are here because in the days where we used to see Fabio Parra, Lucio Herrera come up, the crowd got so close the riders were almost brought to a standstill. So the barriers go further and further down this mountain every year. And it gives more room to work now for Indurain. Nobody has helped him whatsoever. As he passes under the 3 kilometres to go banner, he's still over a kilometre behind Marco Pantani. So Pantani is safe now for the victory, and Indurain is going to be safe in that yellow jersey too. The second and final day in the Alps. And everything going the way of Miguel Indurain, but he had to work for it. He was second yesterday. And there's an outside chance he can still finish second today, unless, of course, Zula or Rees manage to jump him in the last kilometre, because just after the kilometre sign, you come onto the plateau of the town of Alpe d'Huez, and then it kicks up again just before the line. And Marco Pantani, his head especially shaved for the Tour de France, and note that he still uses the down tube shifters rather than the STI on the brake levers. It doesn't seem to slow him down any. He's got his rhythm going, and so too is this man now, Miguel Indurain. But just look at the crowd here. It is a beautifully hot summer's day here on Alpe d'Huez, and Laurent Jalabert again is doing a great ride up the mountain. So the sprinter really is becoming a true all-rounder. He's on the climb at the moment in around about 7th position. Marco Pantani now in the closing kilometres of Alpe d'Huez. He'll now stay in amongst the houses until he makes the final left turn up to the finishing line. The town that comes alive just for a few days in the height of summer for the Tour de France. And now Indurain, still finding the effort, will not allow anybody to gain time on him. And the reason he's keeping his pace high here right now is to try and stop Alex Zula or Bjarne Riis jumping him in the last kilometre. And still we have alongside Ivan Gotti here is Lance Jalabert taking a quick drink. And it looks to me as though Jalabert is going to finish this now, and he's going to have to take a hard look at the overall classification tonight and say to himself, well, I might well have to go for a high finish in Paris. Indurain still got that beautiful position, still using all of his concentration. Just look at the difference in style between him and Alex Zula. Zula's working extremely hard now to hang on to Miguel Indurain. Indurain locked solid. All that tells us the problem is his face. Very good steady rhythm. Very different style to that of Alex Zula and Bjarne Riis. And Bjarne Riis has done the ride on Alpe d'Huez today. He has suffered. He has come back at least twice to the side of these riders on the climb. And now he's going to hang on, and who knows, he might get the advantage of the finish here because he's a fighter. Indurain second yesterday. Losing time today only to Marco Pantani. Pantani should come up the overall classification, but he's not going to come up anywhere like close enough to take the yellow jersey away from Miguel Indurain. Under the kilometre to go banner. Marco Pantani riding to victory. Who would have thought that? He was unable to start in the Tour of Italy. He said he'd come here. He didn't know what his form was like. He gave us some indication in the Tour of Switzerland. Now he's showing us his form is very good indeed. Although it's not quite the Marco Pantani of 1 year ago. Even so, he's got his rhythm, he's got the gap, and he's shortly going to get his stage win as well. An enormous crowd, as big as we've ever seen up here. Funny enough, with the demise of the top Dutch riders, we don't see so many Dutch people coming here anymore because they always used to win on top of Alpe d'Huez. Henny Kuiper, Peter Winnen, etc. Gert-Jan Teunissen. But now those riders have all retired. Teunissen giving up this season, just after it started, in fact. And now we're looking at the Italians taking control of Alpe d'Huez as well. This will be the third Italian victory. by a different Italian. It's the fourth Italian victory because Gianni Bugno has won twice here. And the crowd very orderly indeed, as now Marco Pantani, I would say without doubt, is going to have the greatest moment of his cycling career. This young man now coming to turn left in, well, you're supposed to turn left, Marco. That's in fact the way the cars go off the course. The riders go hard left, but there's no need to worry. He may have lost a second. It really doesn't matter. In the last 200 metres now, as he lines up for the finish, Marco Pantani is going to win his stage. So after the lone victory yesterday of Alex Zülle to win his first stage of a Tour de France, we now have Marco Pantani, the greatest climber currently riding the circuit, sprinting to victory here on what is certainly the mecca of cycling. Marco Pantani will win. He won't get the yellow jersey, but he certainly will gain time today. He's been in the saddle 5¼ hours. This is the race now for second place. Indurain, Zülle, Ries yo-yoing on and off the back wheel of Alex Zülle, but this is the plateau I was telling you about. Now Indurain knows the way better than anybody to the top of Alpe d'Huez. I'm quite sure he won't make the mistake of going straight on. This is the left turn now. He takes it very quickly, very wide to force Zülle and Ries to the far right. In fact, took it so well there, he gained a length over the field, and that might be good enough to get second in as many days in the Alps, because now Indurain is coming clear. The gap is not enormous either, just over 1.25 minutes as Miguel Indurain comes to the line. Zülle has not got it, and neither has Bjorn Ries. This is the order of the top three overall in the Tour de France, and that's how they crossed the finishing line. So the 2 days in the Alps have proved Miguel Indurain to be as strong as ever, and they've given the great climber Pantani the victory. So it was a win for Marco Pantani, 1 minute and 24 seconds ahead of Miguel Indurain, who finished with Alex Zülle. Bjorn Ries was fourth, and by the way, Laurent Jalabert finished seventh. Indurain now leading the Tour de France by 2 minutes 27 seconds ahead of Alex Zülle. Bjorn Ries is third.